Hi guys, this is Ms. Jacobson. Today I'm going to be going over how to answer STAAR sentence type questions. Why do we need to know how to answer sentence type questions? What is a sentence type question? Well, on our fall and our spring benchmarks, sentence type questions were one of the most tested multiple choice questions, but we didn't do as well as we had hoped. On the fall benchmark, we only answered 45% of those correct as a school. On the spring benchmark, it was close to 55. However, I really believe that we can do better, and because that's tested so frequently, we need to make sure we understand what a sentence type question is. What a sentence type question does is it asks us to evaluate different sentences from a STAAR passage, whether it be a simple sentence, a compound sentence, or a complex sentence. Compound uses fanboys, complex uses an awubis, and to make sure that they are written correctly. There's no obvious mistakes or punctuation mistakes. But how do you even answer those questions? Sometimes catching the mistakes in those sentences can be hard. That's why we're going to break it down into 4 steps. If you do these 4 steps on these sentence type questions, you are going to get them right. But it involves taking a little bit of time and reading carefully. The first step is to read each sentence carefully the exact same way you would read it out loud. Make sure that each sentence is a complete thought. Look for and circle any fanboys, awubis, commas, or semicolons in that sentence. Understanding where your punctuation is and where you need it can make the difference in catching a wrong answer. Sometimes a wrong answer is only wrong because of 1 comma. Eliminate any sentences that have one of our obvious mistakes. STAAR uses the same 4 mistakes over and over again because they know that people fall for those same 4 mistakes over and over again every test. Lastly, you need to know your fanboys and your awubis rules. It's hard to know if a comma is right or wrong, or if you have a complete thought, or if your sentence is combined correctly if you don't know the rules. Step 1 is to read each sentence carefully. You can often hear that something is wrong with a sentence, even if you're not sure what is wrong. You need to read each answer choice to yourself the exact same way as if you were reading it out loud. Make short pauses for commas and longer pauses for periods. For instance, this is a sentence from the revising and editing passage off of the spring benchmark. If I'm going to read this out loud, I need to make sure that I use commas and periods and use pauses to indicate where those commas and periods are so that I can hear what's going on in the sentence. It's called upcycling. This is turning something you would otherwise throw away into a useful item. It's called upcycling. This is turning something you would otherwise throw away into a useful item. I'm going to make sure that I have a pause, a short pause for that comma, and a long pause for that period. Step 2 is to circle your punctuation, your awubis, and your fanboys. Stop to make sure that you notice any commas or semicolons as well as any awubis words and fanboys. By circling the punctuation, the awubis, and the fanboys, you can help yourself notice a mistake in an answer choice that otherwise sounds good. It can sound good out loud, but if it's missing a comma and you didn't pause to hear for that comma, you didn't notice that there wasn't a pause, then you're going to still get that answer choice wrong. Make sure you pay close attention to punctuation. STAAR likes to give you answer choices where you're only off by 1 punctuation mark or 1 missing word. It's called upcycling. This is turning something you would otherwise throw away into a useful item. Step 3 is to eliminate any obvious mistakes. There are a few types of mistakes that STAAR uses over and over again. They do it because they know how often people fall for those mistakes. But if you recognize them, it's much easier to pick the right answer. Types of mistakes include run-ons and comma splices, sentence fragments, awkward sentences, or repetitive sentences. That's repetition when it repeats a lot. A run-on is when a sentence has more than one complete thought and they are combined incorrectly. There's a couple of different ways that a run-on can look in a passage, so you need to be careful and look for all of them. Of course, before you can recognize a run-on, you have to know what a complete thought is. If the sentence has a comma between two complete thoughts with no fanboys, it's a run-on that's also called a comma splice. If the sentence doesn't have a comma and fanboys at all, and it doesn't have a semicolon, which is the comma with the dot above it, if it doesn't have the comma, fanboys, or the semicolon at all between the two complete thoughts, it's definitely a run-on. If the sentence has a fanboys in between two complete thoughts, so and or but in between two complete thoughts, but has no comma, even though it has that fanboys, it's still a run-on. A sentence fragment is when a sentence is not a complete thought. In order to be a complete thought, a sentence needs the subject, the who or the what, and the verb, what they do, or the words is, am, were, was, are, etc. An awkward sentence is when something in the sentence is in the wrong place, so the whole sentence doesn't make sense. For instance, the child stood next to the car that was screaming. I don't know about you, but if my car starts screaming, we're going to have some issues. That's not normal. Who is actually supposed to be screaming in this sentence? Why doesn't it make sense? The last type of sentence mistake is a repetitive sentence. The repetitive sentence repeats the same idea over and over again. Notice I didn't just say repeats words. Sometimes we're tempted to highlight all the times the sentence says the, or all the times the sentence says good. That can be a type of repetition, but what you're more likely to see is the same idea repeated. For instance, if I'm talking about a student who fell asleep in class, I might say the lesson was done and finished by the time he woke up. However, this sentence is not written correctly because it repeats itself. Even though I didn't repeat the exact same words, done and finished mean the exact same thing. So I don't need both of those words if it's the same idea. Let's pause for a minute and look at the correct answer choices from this question. Remember, when we read an answer choice, we need to make sure that we read the original sentence, the sentence before it, and the sentence after it, and then compare. Using the strategies we just talked about, what is the correct answer choice? Which answer choices can we eliminate? Let's practice some more. The last step is to know your awubis and fanboy rules. Knowing the rules can help you catch a comma in a weird place or understand why a sentence need a comma that it does have. This helps you eliminate mistakes. This has been the video on mastering STAAR sentence type questions. If you are still having trouble understanding how to correctly answer a STAAR sentence type question, feel free to rewatch this video or attend tutorials. Following this message, there should be a quiz in order for you to demonstrate your mastery of STAAR sentence type questions.